On a cold, clear Monday morning in the suburbs of Albany, New York, 16-year-old John Romano entered the halls of Columbia High School with a Winchester 12-gauge pump-action shotgun and fired off 2 shots. It was 10:30 on the morning of February 9, 2004. After the shots had been fired, the campus's 1,400 students were ushered into lockdown. Luckily, no one had been hit. The assistant principal, John Shawchuck, happened upon Romano and leapt into action, tackling the student to the ground. Upon impact, the gun accidentally went off a 3rd time, and this time the bullet did find a target: the leg of special education teacher Michael Bennett. Police later found a cache of shotgun shells hidden in the boy's bathroom. In November of that year, Romano accepted a plea deal and was found guilty on 3 counts of attempted murder and 6 counts of reckless endangerment, receiving a maximum sentence of 20 years. In December of 2020, after serving a prison sentence that had lasted half his life, Romano was released from prison. When interviewed, law enforcement officials and Romano's schoolmates attested that he'd been having mental and emotional struggles for some time before the culminating attack, claiming that he'd driven away most of his friends and had even been suspended from school before being allowed to return in the fall of 2003. Accounts of Romano's own frame of mind at the time have been mixed. In court, Romano admitted to having thought of shooting others for a long time before February 9th and announced that it had been his intent to kill, not wound, Mr. Bennett, as well as others. However, since then, Romano has claimed that he had been suicidal and was hoping to be shot dead by police during the attack. We may never truly know what was running through John Romano's mind on that winter morning in 2004, what compels someone to pick up a firearm, bring it into a school, and to attempt to commit such a heinous and desperate act. So what the hell does any of this have to do with Joker?
Smile, though your heart is aching. Smile, even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by.
Joker is the tale of Arthur Fleck, a man who works as a professional clown and suffers from a disorder that makes him laugh uncontrollably at inappropriate times. Because of this, Fleck is a social outcast. Due to his mental health issues, the increasingly hostile atmosphere in Gotham, the lack of funding for social outreach programs, the financial pressures of providing for himself and his mother, and many other factors, Fleck is an extremely depressed individual. Fleck's mother tells him that he is the illegitimate child of the wealthy Thomas Wayne, which causes Fleck to pine for the Wayne family's affluent lifestyle and for the love of a father he never knew. He stalks Wayne and confronts him, and Wayne denies that he is Fleck's father. It turns out that Fleck's mother, suffering from mental illness herself, had fostered an obsession with Thomas Wayne for many years and deluded herself into believing that they had once had an implicit love affair, resulting in Arthur's conception. Arthur isn't even her child, she adopted him. When Arthur finds out about his mother's fabrications, he kills her in a fit of rage. Fleck's dream is to be a stand-up comic and to make people laugh. He looks up to late-night host Murray Franklin, played by Robert De Niro, but his breaking point is when a tape of him bombing at an open mic goes viral, so to speak, and Fleck's idol plays the video on his show and openly mocks him. This causes Fleck to embrace the persona of the Joker, a symbol of class revolution against the police, politicians, and the ruling class of Gotham. Fleck is invited onto Franklin's talk show, where he delivers a screed about society and shoots Franklin dead on air. This leads the city to erupt into a massive riot, during which Thomas Wayne and his wife are murdered in an alleyway in front of their 8-year-old son. Fleck dances as Gotham burns, reveling in the chaos and destruction he's brought about before being hauled away to Arkham Asylum. Joker is loosely, and I do mean loosely, inspired by Alan Moore's The Killing Joke, which breaks the cardinal rule of DC by giving the Joker a backstory. Well, it's unclear if it's his real backstory or if it's just the Joker making shit up. But basically, it's about a man, just an average Joe, who dreams of being a stand-up comedian, but he anguishes over the fact that while everyone laughs at him, no one finds him funny. He's forced to help some criminals break into a chemical plant so he can earn some money to support his wife and unborn baby, who he ends up losing in a tragic accident. On top of that, Batman shows up in the middle of a break-in, and the man is forced to hide in a vat of chemicals, which permanently bleaches his skin and turns his hair green. This is his lowest point, his worst day, and the man reaches his breaking point and becomes the Joker. The Joker's philosophy in The Killing Joke is that he wasn't special, he was just a random guy who had one really bad day, and that anyone, if driven over the edge like he was, could become the Joker. Joker, the film, asks the audience to think about important issues such as how people in poverty are forced to live in our world, and how we mistreat and ostracize the mentally ill, and how oftentimes being poor and being mentally ill go hand in hand. People of lower incomes tend to be under higher amounts of stress and work jobs in which they're more likely to be dehumanized, which can lead to stress and anxiety. And when neurodivergent people don't have the money or the access to resources that can help them manage their mental health, it can make their condition worse. It's a nasty cycle that's nigh impossible to escape. It's a reality that not a lot of movies want to portray or confront, so I have to give this movie its props for understanding that fact and going there with it. It's just a shame that they had to frame it with what is essentially the story of a mass shooter. Narratives like Joker are in many ways harmful and dangerous to the very marginalized groups they appear to champion. These are highly sensitive and nuanced topics that I don't think can be neatly summed up in a 2-hour film. One glaring example of this is when Fleck kills a trio of entitled misogynistic finance bros after they attack him on the subway, and for some reason the characters in the movie make the jump in logic that they were killed because they're rich, and obviously the killer is just jealous of their wealth and success. Yes, Arthur is an impoverished blue-collar worker, but we, the audience, know that. The people of Gotham don't. Why would you just assume that's the reasoning behind killing someone? Imagine if this movie was about the Boston Marathon bombing. Would they assume that the Tsarnaev brothers were envious of in-shape people? Hell, John Hinckley Jr. shot Reagan just to impress his celebrity crush, even when there were so many valid reasons to shoot that motherfucker. I know there's a need to pathologize some kind of rational motivation behind such banal acts, because the reality that some people are capable of such evil is too horrendous to face. But it's the truth. People who want to commit acts of violence do not need some complex incentive to do so. And while we're here, it can't be understated that the People's Revolt at the end of the movie is suspiciously evocative of the Black Lives Matter movement, or rather, it looks like what conservatives think and want others to believe a BLM demonstration looks like.
Violence, shooting at police, and looting in Ferguson, that's bad. That is not constitutionally protected. Those are crimes.
Again, the movie is touching on a reality here that the downtrodden of our society often find themselves at odds with the police, because cops maintain the status quo, which means protecting and reinforcing systems like capitalism and white supremacy. But it's very dangerous to suggest that BLM and progressive movements like it are just angry, violent people looking for an excuse to riot and loot, like the Joker army is. I don't know for certain if that's what Todd Phillips was trying to evoke or not with this imagery, but considering the social and political climate at the time the film was being released, it's hard to believe that it was a coincidence. The problem with the characters in the movie making the subway murders about class is that it doesn't make sense within the universe. Yes, there was already a backdrop of income inequality and disillusionment established in the beginning of the movie, but assuming these men were murdered because somebody wanted to make a political statement is poppycock. It's much more rational to assume that this is just a mugging gone wrong. This leap in logic is serving theme first and story second. The movie clearly wants to explore topics like poverty and mental illness, but doesn't really know what to say about them. So they end up being present in aesthetic only, to make the audience feel like they're watching an important movie about important issues. But in the end, it's this negative, nihilistic message about rewarding violence and the mentally ill being inherently dangerous and evil, the same horseshit that the right wing have been peddling about mass shooters for years. Guns aren't the problem, toxic masculinity isn't the problem, white supremacy isn't the problem. No, the problem is that every depressed and neurodivergent person is a ticking time bomb, because God knows we aren't stigmatized enough as it is. The other reason I hate this plot contrivance is that without it, there's no driving force for the Joker army to rise up and riot. There are real social and economic issues in Gotham, but some guy in a clown costume murdering 3 yuppies on a train would not be the catalyst for a proletariat revolution. It would be a meme. Hell, it was a meme. Let's be perfectly clear. He killed those guys on the subway because they were beating him up. It was self-defense. At least until the last guy started running away. Then it was about getting rid of the witness. Everything else he did afterward, killing his mom, killing his coworker, killing Robert De Niro, that was about him feeling like they and society at large have wronged him. In Dark Knight Rises, Bane makes a speech chastising Gotham for its greed and corruption. And he's basically right. Rich assholes living the good life while grinding everyone else under their boot heel is a problem in both the fictional world and the real one. But Bane is a fucking terrorist. And terrorists don't just hurt evil people, they hurt everyone, including the oppressed masses he claims to champion. His words do not match his actions. He's not actually trying to make the world better or more fair. He just wants to kill people and take their money for himself. When you commit acts that harm the community as a whole, it doesn't make you revolutionary just because you adorn yourself in the aesthetics of righteousness. What's really sad is that on some level the movie understands this. Arthur Fleck is the villain of the story, much like Tony Soprano, like Walter White, like Jordan Belfort. But characters like this and the stories about them are very good at getting the audience on their side, especially when the character themselves thinks they're the victim in all this and that if other people suffer in service to their self-satisfaction, it's perfectly justified. Fuck you, got mine. And of course, we can't discuss the harmful messaging of Joker without bringing up how this character became a sort of figurehead of incel culture. The Joker was already a sort of edgelord icon before this movie, arguably since The Dark Knight.
See, madness, as you know, is like gravity. All it takes is a little push.
But even then, the Joker and his philosophy was meant to be a commentary on how people are inherently evil and selfish and will tear each other apart to save themselves. He never tried to pass himself off as a revolutionary like Bane. He literally just wanted to
Watch the world burn.
And yet, Heath Ledger's Joker became the poster boy for black pill dogma, inspiring edgy boy Facebook status updates for years to come. And Joaquin Phoenix's iteration became the personification of that kind of mindset.
What is more important to our culture than the Joker?
Okay, neckbeards and trilby wearers of the audience, why do you identify with the Joker? Why do you agree with his worldviews? I agree, there are inherent problems with our society. The rising of mainstream fascist ideology, for one. The oppression and vilification of trans people. The ever-shrinking middle class. Are those the problems you're talking about? Or are you mad that girls won't date you? In the film, Fleck fabricates this entire romantic relationship with a woman who lives in his building, to the point where he forgets where his parasocial fantasies end and reality begins, casually breaking into her apartment and scaring the shit out of her and her young daughter. This woman doesn't know him. She shared an elevator with him one time and never thought about him again. And it's worth mentioning that violence and physical intimacy are intrinsically related in Fleck's mind, as after he commits the subway murders, he goes home and has a fantasy about Zazie Beetz enthusiastically jumping his bones. In the mind of many an incel, ability to commit violence equals strength of character equals manliness, and manliness equals getting a piece of that long-coveted In essence, 2019's Joker solidified the clown prince of crime as the embodiment of frustrated cishet white men who have been taught that society exists to cater to them and their desires, and then feel cheated when that social contract is broken. And on top of that, it villainizes the mentally ill and paints them as vicious terrorists who will snap at any moment and perform a bunch of atrocities. So let's go back to that Columbia High shooting of 2004. John Romano was released from prison in December of 2020, and for a while, he didn't really poke his head above the water. It wasn't until August of 2022 that he started getting attention because he was attacked by a homeless man with a sword and hospitalized. The attack was totally random, had nothing to do with the school shooting. Naturally, such an odd incident was going to attract media attention, which is when Romano's history was redug up, and Romano took to social media, particularly TikTok, under the handle John Seeking Peace to explain himself. Romano was an instant viral sensation, because of course people want to get inside the mind of the kind of person who could commit such a heinous act, and most of them are either dead or still in prison. And Romano took this opportunity to reframe the narrative, painting himself in a less villainous light, which garnered him sympathy and fame. Romano even set up a GoFundMe page after the attack to help pay his hospital bills, which people contributed to. Since getting out of prison, Romano has been an advocate for school shooting prevention, supporting causes like gun control and providing more resources for mental health. And to his credit, when someone has caused the kind of harm he has, this is probably the best way a person can spend their life. But the problem is that now he's using this tragedy that he caused for clout and financial gain. His TikTok is monetized. He's literally making money off of this catastrophe. Romano has tried to reframe the shooting as a desperate act, claiming that at the time he was depressed and wanted to die by cop to end his misery. I don't doubt that a part of Romano did want to commit suicide. Most mentally ill people are suicidal at some point. But that's not why he shot up that school. Narratives like Joker and the one John Romano has crafted on his social media ask us to ignore the harm men like this do and look upon the perpetrators with compassion and pity. They both use the excuse of mental illness as a justification for their actions when there is no justification. There is a paradox that comes with living as a human being in the world that most people don't want to acknowledge. It's that everyone owes each other common human decency, and that also, people don't owe you shit. You are not any more special or entitled to happiness than anyone else. We're all suffering in this existence. And you don't right that injustice by making the world worse for others by acting selfishly. You do it by treating others with kindness, by helping those in need. You have no right to take your pain out on others.
They think that we'll just sit there and take it like good little boys, that we won't werewolf and go wild.
You finished? I mean, there's so much self-pity, Arthur. Not everybody, and I'll tell you this, not everyone is awful.
There's a disturbing tendency in our society to sympathize with deplorable people when they're troubled white men and try to frame them as victims. And somehow it works. People on TikTok form John Romano defense squads in droves, claiming that he did his time, that he's starting a dialogue, that he didn't even kill anyone. Nobody is thinking about John Romano's victims, who are still alive and existing in this world, no thanks to him. This motherfucker has the absolute gall to follow the schoolmates he tried to murder on social media and try to befriend them. His presence online and in the public eye is re-traumatizing these people, many of whom probably never got over the trauma of that day in the first place. I've seen videos of these people crying and trembling while they talk about their experience. No matter how John Romano and his defenders want to act, everything is not okay. I don't think John Romano should die. I don't think he should go back to prison unless he commits another crime. I don't even think that he deserves to suffer for the rest of his life. But if this man truly wants to make amends for what he's done and be a positive force for the world, maybe the best thing he can do is delete his social media and go back to keeping his head down and continue to make the world better anonymously. You think I'm exaggerating the danger that narratives like this can create, but the fact is that danger already exists. There's an entire subgenre of the true crime community about fangirling over actual serial killers. We live in a post-extremely wicked, shockingly evil and vile world, a post-Ryan Murphy's Dahmer world. Hell, even before that movie, Evan Peters had already played a school shooter/rapist in another Ryan Murphy project, who's framed as a troubled sad boy who just needs to be loved. I've worked in a school. I've thought about having to use my body as a shield to protect children. And I shouldn't have to. And children shouldn't have to be afraid for their lives while they're at school. And until we take serious action and make it clear that behavior like this is intolerable, more John Romanos are going to keep cropping up. The problem is that we've grown numb to the harm that his ilk cause. And that makes clowns of us all.
Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. I've been around for a long, long year. Stole many a man's soul of faith. I was around when Jesus Christ had his moment